welcome to Life Matters. Today we have a very special show for you. This show is so big, so powerful, we got to do it in 2 parts. This is part 1, real estate information, education for the first-time home buyer. I'm Julie Plush, your co-host, along with Stephanie Alston, and our special subject matter expert, real estate agent and owner of All Service Real Estate, George Hockaday Bay.
Thanks.
Thank God we have him here because we would not be able to answer all the questions. So we really had a really good time with this discussion because Stephanie bought her first home, yay! And George was her agent. So we want to have him here to answer questions for us and to really give you a good education. Just talking to Stephanie over the phone and her home buying experience really gave me an education. And it's so much information, so much to do, so much to think about, and we want to share it with you. So she had a great experience and we want to share it today. But the first thing I want to know, George, is in terms of real estate, how did you get into the business and how long have you been in the business?
Okay. Well, I've been in the real estate business about 9 years. My background, I was actually an electrician. I still am an electrician. And I wanted to invest in real estate property. So I said, well, let me get my license. That'll help me learn more about the process. I went to school, acquired my real estate license, and started selling property. As soon as I got my real estate license, people started inquiring, asking me how to buy a property, and I actually started selling property. So that's how I got into real estate. It wasn't my intent to get in to start selling property, but that's how it worked out.
Okay, great. How long has it been?
9 years.
9 years, okay.
Mm-hmm.
God bless you. Okay. Well, how is the real estate business doing now? Because I know 9 years ago and even prior to that, it was hot. Because I have 7 to 8 friends that are all in the business. So is it still kind of?
Well, 9 years ago, the real estate market was a very different climate. There were a lot of different products that were available, a lot of programs. And the biggest part and the most important part for people to understand is that 9 years ago, the house prices were accelerated. So it cost a lot more money to get into a property back then. Now,
the interest rates were higher too.
Interest rates were higher. It was a lot more money to get into a property. So people, when you speak with some people, they say those were the good old days and the market was good. It might have been good for some people, but for most people, now's a better time, particularly for first-time home buyers, is a great time to buy because the interest rates are historically low and the property prices are at an affordable price point. I'll give a good example. 9 years ago, a lot of my clients, you actually needed to have a 2-income family household in order to buy a property because the price points average there were $250 and up. Now, probably the average, you can find a decent property for around $150 to $250. So that's a good starting point for you to do it. And a lot of people can afford properties like that on their own now, so it is a great time to buy for first-time home buyers.
Okay, great. Sure. Well, the main thing we want to do today is share Stephanie's testimony, the gospel truth of home buying. So I just want to throw it to you, Stephanie, and most people looking today would want to know, where on earth do I start? Because there's so many different places where you can start. It's like, okay, I'd like to buy a home. Where do you go? What do you think about?
Well, what I did was I educated myself, like George said, and I went to several different types of home buying seminars where they were giving out a lot of information about just the process. And because I was looking for money, I wanted some assistance. I needed some assistance, and everybody is at a different level. But I just started out going to different programs sponsored by DC government or just nonprofit agencies. And I just educated myself. And I actually, one of the seminars I went to was given by Operation Hope right up here on Good Old Road in Southeast DC. And I went on a Saturday afternoon. The seminar was only about 2 hours. There were about 8 people there, and everybody's at a different place. But the lady that was doing the seminar, she works there, and she just gave some basic information about income and just things to look for, and talking about the importance of a credit score. And she actually pulled our credit scores right there at the end of the seminar. And when she got finished, she said, well, she told me I had a pretty good credit score. I was like, well, that's good to know, because I mean, I've had some dings in the past. So those of you out there who may have had, you know, trouble with your credit in the past, you can fix it. You can get it right. It may take you, you know, a minute to clean it up, but you can if you really want to buy a house, because I had to do that. And she told me my credit score. I was like, okay, very good. And then but she said, well, since you haven't had too much of a rental history for a while, you may want to look at a rent-to-own scenario. And I'd heard of rent-to-own, and I said, well, maybe that's not such a bad idea. So I started to investigate, and I just went online and started typing in rent-to-own. And various companies popped up, and one of the ones that popped up was a company out in Clinton. And I went to the Saturday seminar again, too. I went there as well, just to hear what the guy had to say. And he said a lot of the same things I've been hearing before about, you know, credit and, you know, being able to afford, making sure you get something that you can afford, because you buy a house is more than just paying the mortgage, okay? You got to pay utilities. You still have to eat. So keep that in mind. You know, there are other things, you know, you need to do. Yeah. Yes, I know we get excited about being able to buy the house. Yay, I qualify for the house, but look at all the other expenses, and only you know your expenses.
Right.
So I went there, and the lender was there at that seminar as well, because all of us had filled out an informational sheet. And he said to each of us in the room, he said, well, you know, the lender is looking at each one of your profiles as we're doing this seminar, and he's pulling your credit and says, some of you sitting in this room really will need to rent to own, or will be in a situation where you're not ready to buy yet. So rent to own might be best for you at this point until you build your credit up. But some of you sitting in here at this rent to own seminar, you're actually ready to buy. I was one of those people, because at the end of the seminar, the lender told me, he said, Stephanie, you're ready to buy. He said, we just want to get the process started with you. You know, we can qualify you. And he said, once you go through your program, because I did get assistance through one of DC's programs, it's called HPAP, and George's going to talk to you a little bit more about that later. But I did get some assistance, and everybody qualifies at a different level, but they gave me enough to help me with my down payment and some of the closing costs. And the rest is history. And the process, I mean, we started, once I got the certification through HPAP, went through their seminar, because I had to go through their seminar too, you know, and give them all the documentation that they need. And I'm telling you, when you get ready to buy a home, be ready to disclose everything, just about, and it's a lot of paperwork. It is, it's a lot of paperwork. I mean, your income taxes, they're looking at bank statements, and they're looking at a lot of information. Work verification, anything that may have occurred on your credit report that needs explanation, be prepared to write a letter to explain what happened. Just like I said before, just because there have been mishaps that have occurred on your credit doesn't mean that's going to prevent you necessarily from getting a home. But when the lender sees that, they're going to want an explanation, especially if it was something, you know, maybe like a charge off, or, you know, a repossession or something like that. And I'm not saying that's what was on my credit. I'm not saying that, but those are the types of things that can be on, you know, your credit.
Yeah.
So just be prepared to explain and just give a lot of information and go through the process. Look, I don't care if these people ask for your report card from the 2nd grade, give it to them. Okay,
Right.
because exactly, just give them everything that they need. Because I remember there was one time when we were going through the lending, and my lender kept asking, or who was it, the lender or the settlement company? I forgot, George, but they were asking for my bank statement.
Oh yeah, that was the lender.
The lender, and. You know, when you look at your bank statement, it says pages 1 of 10. And on page 10, there may be absolutely nothing on it. So what I did, I said, well, they don't need this. There's nothing on it. I faxed them pages 1 through 9. It's like, no. They want to see all of it, because they don't know what's on, if there's anything on page 10 or not. You know there's nothing on page 10. They want to see that there's nothing on page 10. So make sure you fax every sheet of paper in those statements.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to the point about the rent to own. I know George has some really good thoughts and information about rent to own, because some people may really want to know about rent to own and may have it as an option, but we want to know the pros and the cons.
Rent to own can be a great program for some people. For others, not so much. And because there are a lot of real estate has a lot of moving parts and components in it, in essence, just from the beginning, no matter what you do with real estate. When you do a rent to own, you add a couple more dynamics that aren't present when you purchase the property, particularly agreeing on the down payment or the option money that you're going to give, and agreeing to future value, because usually the option is executed about 6 months to a year out. So we need to make sure that we have an agreement on future value or future purchase price of the property. We need to make sure that we have an agreement on timeline, and then we have to make sure that you're able to qualify at the time it's time to consummate their contract. So I would much rather that a person goes in, does the upfront work on their credit, get everything together and be ready to purchase, because then you can look at all properties on the market that are available for purchase instead of just the few properties that offer that rent to own option.
Okay, and what do you think about that, Stephanie? Because you had a past experience.
Yeah, the only thing my personal experience with the rent to own is that when I was a little girl, I remember my grandparents, they did that. There was a house in Northwest that we moved into, and it was a rent to own option. But we were only in that property for a little over a year, and we moved out. And what I remember was my grandfather being upset with the owner of that home, because apparently what I got from that was that the owner may have reneged on something, or the agreement didn't go as originally thought, or planned. So that was not a happy situation for my grandparents or for us, because we had to wind up finding another place, and moving out of the property. So that rent-to-own scenario did not work for us for whatever reason. Just like I said, I was a kid, so I wasn't involved in the transaction, but I remember the emotion behind it as a kid. And I was like, oh, okay. So, yeah.
It's kind of important to be able to have controls. And when you go farther out in a year, there are it's hard to maintain all the controls that it takes to purchase the property. So you want to make sure that you maintain that control and that you are able to do what you agree to do at the time you agree to do it. So when you purchase, you're agreeing to do something, you know that you're already pre-qualified to do what you say you're going to do, and you just have to add the rest of the pieces together. When you try to predict the future, no one has a crystal ball, so it's kind of hard to say what's going to happen. So.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, I want to stop here, because what I really want us to focus on in the next segment is some of the other ways that you can start. Because I know you started with a seminar, but there are several other ways, and I know that's going to take up some time to talk about other ways that you can actually start. Because most people say, oh, the first thing I had to do is just get an agent, and run to an agent, or go to a website or something like that. So we want to talk about the different ways. So when we come back, we want to start with there and talk about the different ways that you can actually get started, in addition to how Stephanie started with a seminar and other ways that you can do that. So we'll be right back.
I wish I could go back when I didn't need someone to do my hair, back when I could still say my husband's name, back when I could have called 911 but didn't, back when I first felt the warning signs of a stroke but did nothing. I wish I could go back, but I can't.
With a stroke, time lost is brain lost. At the first warning signs, take action immediately.
Coming home can be hard if you're a veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan. You may feel like you're all alone, but you're not alone. At iava.org, your fellow vets are all around you. Join our free online community, get the resources you need, and connect to other vets who know where you're coming from. iava.org. We've got your back.
Welcome back. We ended the first segment talking about where do you start? So many different ways to start. Stephanie started with a seminar and got really good information, and she knew exactly where to go. But there are other ways, and so I want to turn it to George and just talk about where would someone start if they wanted to buy a home.
Yep.
Okay, well, a lot of people, and the majority of people today start usually with the internet. So there's a lot of, you go to Google, you type in real estate, I want to buy a house, you're going to get a million pop-ups. Most times I'm contacted by clients. I'm told that they want to purchase a property. I talk to them about what they want, what they need. Then I usually refer them out to a lender, or have a lender take a look at their credit, because we want to make sure that, first of all, you're ready to buy, you're ready to purchase, and what you can purchase, what you qualify for. Mm-hmm. It's hard to look at properties. It's hard to find a property you want. It's even harder to lose that property because you didn't take the time to properly get pre-qualified before you went out and looked at the property.
Right.
It's an emotional blow. The real estate process itself is already emotional enough. So we want to make sure that we do everything so that when we find that property we want, we can actually buy it and get it over with, instead of having to wait 3 months because of one thing on the credit that we have to get fixed. So, and also we want to make sure that we're looking at the right properties price-wise. We want to look at what we can afford. We don't want to look at properties that's priced way higher than what we can afford. Then that's another emotional blow. So that's usually where we like to start off at. Getting the information, finding out exactly what you qualify for.
And that lender piece is key, because even with, the lender that I was going with, they'd already pre-qualified me for a certain amount. And that was great, but then I called the lender back, after I started figuring, okay, so what are gonna be my monthly payments here? Okay, if the house is this rate, okay, I gotta pay the mortgage, and like I was saying before, you got to pay more than the mortgage. I said, okay, I'm a tither too. I said, I need to make sure I have enough money over, to pay my tithes.
Amen.
So, and I called the lender back, I said, okay, Chris, look, I know this is how much I qualify for, what my monthly payments are gonna be. I said, look, but I tithe, and I need to make sure I have money left over tithe. And I love Chris, because Chris said, well, yeah, then that's a good thing. So he said, well, what you can do, because I was trying to work out different programs, because there's so many different programs out there, because I was even looking at doing maybe a 40-year mortgage at one point, stretching it out even longer.
Oh, see, I didn't even know you could.
Well, some lenders will do it, some don't. See, I have an FHA loan. Apparently, FHA does not do 40-year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you can't get a 40-year through FHA, but there are some lenders out there that will do 40-year mortgages, because the longer your mortgage payments are stretched out, the less they are per month. So I was looking at that, and I was looking at different kinds of things, and then Chris said, well, we can do something with FHA. It's called a 2-1 buy down. It's not like an ARM, when I say ARM, an adjustable rate mortgage. You have a lot of people that have adjustable rate mortgages where it may say 3-1, 5-1, meaning for the first 3 years of that adjustable rate mortgage, your payment is fixed, so it doesn't change. But each year after that, throughout the life of that loan, and you could have a 30-year mortgage, so for the next 27 years, your rate's going to fluctuate, or up or down. It depends on market conditions and what your base rate is. And that's why a lot of people have gotten in trouble, with their mortgages because of that. It wasn't for everybody. I'm not saying the adjustable rate mortgage is bad, because it's not. You just have to make sure it's for you. But anyway, with what I got something called a 2-1 buy down, meaning my rate started out at a certain point, an initial rate, and what I was able to do was buy it down 2 interest rate points below that. So for the first year of my mortgage, my interest rate is 2 interest points below what the initial rate is. For the second year, it goes up 1 point above that, and then at year 3 through the rest of the life of my loan, it's at that initial rate that I already knew about, so it will not change. Mm-hmm. So that's how it was able to work for me. So I'm saying that to people out there to let you know that there are ways that they're different. There's so many different types of mortgage products out there that could work with your particular situation.
Yeah,
excellent.
And that's a great point, and that's the other reason why you want to go to the lenders first, because there are always different products that are available. They're lender-specific products. And also, that's how you kind of know where you're going to be able to get into the other home buying programs or the down payment assistance program. In the industry, we might call them DPAs. And what they do is they provide money for the home buyer to basically help them out with their down payment or their closing costs. Because in a lot of cases, most people make the money to pay for the house. They're paying it somewhere else in rent. But because of living and the things that we do, we don't always have the ability to save the adequate amount of down payment or closing costs that's needed.
Right.
So that's where the down payment assistance programs come in at. And I want to say something about the programs, that they're usually different qualifying factors that you have to apply to or adhere to be eligible for the program. Most of them have income limits. Most of them are specific to regions or areas or states. But believe me, there's a program available wherever you want to purchase at. I'm in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and I've seen programs work in every state and every county and every jurisdiction. So there is something out there that you may be able to qualify for.
Okay,
Absolutely,
great,
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Now, I know we want to touch on the agent.
Yep. Yes. So George. Now, my agent and I work well together. I mean, really, I know you've heard probably all kinds of stories out there about going through the home buying process. My process, it was rather lengthy, but overall it was painless because I had a good agent. He worked with me, and he knew what I wanted. Even when I asked for one property, I sent George a property one time that was in another part of the city that he knew I didn't want to live in. He said, "Why are you sending me this property?" I said, "Because you don't want to live here." But I said, "Well, I just want to see it because the price, it was in the right price range." He said, "You don't even want to live over there." I said, "You're right. I know where I want to live." So George knew where I want to live. So no, you work with the agent that you tell them what your specifics are. But anyway, George, what should a person be looking for when they looking for an agent? What qualities?
Is very unique to the person. Basically, you want somebody who's knowledgeable in what they're doing, has listened to you. Because if I didn't listen to Stephanie, I wouldn't have known what she wanted. You know, some agents will just take what a person's qualified for and say, "Here are the houses." But no, I took the time and asked Stephanie, "What's important to you? What areas do you want to be in? What do you want in a house?" And I knew there was a reason that Stephanie wanted to be in that area. And I'm like, "You're not going to have that accessibility over in that area." So, we kind of went through the motions, and that's one of the deciding factors that made me say, "Hey, Stephanie, really, I'll show it to you, but will you live there?" You know what I'm saying? And after a discussion, it was, "No, I wouldn't live there," because it's all things have to come into play because you have to really think about it. And what I consider and take into consideration in the process is that after I sell the property to a person, they're going to live there. I'm a great agent. I love Stephanie, but when the process is over, Stephanie has to live there, has to pay the bills there, and I want her to be happy because I make my money in real estate off of referrals. Most people refer clients to me. So if I don't do a good job, Stephanie's not going to refer a client to me.
Right.
So that's what matters the most to me, that I'm making my clients happy, listening to what they want, and doing my best to satisfy all their needs. So
good.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah. So and looking also at the agent, what other qualifications? I mean, as far as professional qualifications, should we be looking for?
License to help if they went to. What you want is a real estate agent who's continuing to educate themselves in the real estate market, staying up on all the various programs and the guidelines that they need to qualify for it. Mm-hmm. There were things that were happening in HPAP that I said, "Look, Stephanie, we're going to need this," and no one had told her that yet. But because I was familiar with the process, I knew that this is going to come up, that's going to come up. And that kind of helps the process along a lot when you know exactly what each program is looking for and you have knowledge of the market.
Talking about market, how does a person know when they are paying a fair price for a property?
Well, I ballpark the neighborhood. I look at past sales, what's currently on the market, and we come to a roundabout price. Now, we do have a compensating factor or a correcting factor. After you get into a contract, you have an appraisal process. And an appraisal establishes market value of the property for that particular space in time. So we know right then, whatever date is on that appraisal, that's the value of the house on that date. Because there's so many factors that affect the market value or the price of your house, that's why the appraisal is good for only one, right then and there. Because we don't know what the next person who sells in your neighborhood is going to sell for. Is impacted by your region. If 10 people in your block sell their house for $50,000 less than what you paid for your house, then your house would be, in essence, to the world, appear to be worth $50,000 less than that. So there are different factors that affect value.
Right, but you have to take in consideration different things too, because maybe that person has done some improvements on their home.
Yes, compensating factors.
Yes, those compensating factors.
Compensating factors, and they're great compensating factors. But I want to mention over improvement. A lot of people think that if they just put $50,000 into a kitchen, they're going to get that money back. A lot of times when we do improvements to a house, they're for our enjoyment. So yes, you will get a compensating factor. You will get a bump on the appraisal for it, but your house has to conform to the properties in your surrounding area. So you can't over-improve your property for that area.
So in essence, what you're saying, if a person puts maybe $75,000 or $50,000 of improvements in there, and they go to sell it, doesn't mean it's going to automatically bump their home value or sale price up to $50,000.
Exactly. You want to make sure and
Take note.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to make sure, and we've all seen it. We've all seen that.
Yes.
A small house. All of a sudden, someone put a big mansion in there. Now that's great for the small houses, but for the big house that did all those improvements, they're not going to realize, they're not going to get the return on their investment. So they're not going to get a proportional amount of money out of their house as to what they put into it.
Yeah.
So before you do that, you want to stay within the neighborhood conformity. If you want to do a lot more in a house, you may want to move to another neighborhood unless there's a specific reason why you're improving and you're going to stay there long enough to reap all the benefits of those improvements.
Yeah, like if I decide I want to put a pool in my backyard, it's like nobody else in my neighborhood has a pool.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
Okay, now I have the house. I found the house. I got my agent. Now what? It's like, I like this mansion right here. Okay, what do I do?
I don't know if you have enough time for that.
Well, just
Now,
the highlights.
Overall, the process works. Once you find a property and you reach a contract agreement, that's a meeting of the minds. Basically, there's agreement on price, purchase time, when you're going to consummate the deal, contingencies. Contingencies are factors things that have to occur before the property can settle. If it's FHA financing, you have usually appraisal contingency, home inspection contingency, and financing contingency. So all that has to take place while the loan's going on. Then you have a mortgage, a title company that goes through and makes sure that you can legally take possession of the property. So once all those things happen, we go through, and then we move on to settlement. It usually takes about between 30 and 60 days after going under contract to settle. Stephanie's took a little longer.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the next show. Mine took longer to settle. That was the thing. See, I said my process was relatively painless, but it took a long time. But mine was a specific case. So.
Because of with the highlight.
The main thing was that there were some things that needed to be improved and upgraded on my property because I bought an older house. I did not buy a new home. I bought an old
good thing. I like.
Yeah, I mean, I love my old house, but because there's some things that need to be done before this deal could consummate, that took a while, and we have to get into the details in the next show.
Okay, lender required repairs. Okay,
lender required because they're not going to underwrite this loan until it's done. Okay, and yeah, that took a while.
Yeah.
That's the part George now. This is where George and I was like, okay, we're getting impatient now because we're both pretty patient people, but we were both getting impatient.
You want to move in.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this show. I said in the beginning, this was part one. We have a lot more to talk about because we want to talk about the home inspection. We want to talk about a little bit more of the repairs and what you're going to look for, and buying and selling, because I'm probably more in the selling category. So we're going to talk about all of that and even more next time. So thank you, George. And if you want more information on what we talked about today, I would say go to the website. Our email, first of all, email us at lifematters@gmail.com and give us your email and website.
Okay, my website is allservicerealestate.com, allservice, ALLSERVIC, realestate.com, and my email address is george@allservicerealestate.com. So if you need any more information on down payment assistance programs or anything about the real estate process, just give me a call. Give me an email, and I'll definitely answer all your questions. All right?
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you in part two. If you want more information, come on back.